So in this section, we're going to not only look at the linear regression that we just did in the last video, but now let's go ahead and do it in a quadratic regression. So that's the part that would be new to this particular chapter. So we're going to do the quadratic regression, which is really the same, pretty much the same steps, just that we're doing the quadratic part instead. So if you go back to the calculator, you see that, yeah, we're seeing that the line of linear is going up, but we can see that the data is kind of going down over here. So looks like sales are dropping. And so this graph doesn't really represent the data as well. So we need to find a different equation that does that. So I'm going to go back to y equals, and I'm not going to delete this equation. I'm going to keep it. To keep it and just turn it off, you move it to the left so that it's on the equal sign, and then when you hit enter, it turns it clear. And so now when you go to graph, you don't see your line anymore. So that's what I wanted, is to do that. And so that's just by moving it over. And you can always turn it back on by moving it to the left and then hitting enter again to turn it back on. So that's kind of a nice feature, so you don't have to delete something to look at something else. So let's do the same thing for this. Let's see if we can fit a quadratic to this. And so to do that, it's the same steps. We still need the data in there just like we did before. But this time we're going to go to the Stat button. We're going to move over to Calc. Instead of 4, we're going to hit number 5, which is a quadratic regression, which is 5. And then we do the same thing. We just hit enter down to regression. And then we go to vars, we go to y-vars, we go to function. This time we're not going to put it in y1, we're going to put it in y2, because then that way we'll have both equations stored. And then we hit enter twice, and then it actually records it for me. And so now I have this type of setup. And so now I have an ABC, because this is a quadratic equation that we're using. And so I have the A, the B, and the C. And let's say we're also rounding to the nearest thousands. So to do that type of setup, I would go ahead and write that out. So my equation is going to be y equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. And then my A, I'm going to round it, so that's going to be negative 0.026. B is going to be positive, so that's 0.826. And then C is going to be negative 2.064. So then my final equation is going to look like this. Negative 0.026x squared plus 0.826x minus 2.064. And so this is what I would end up typing into the homework or quizzes. So now let's go ahead and implement that into the calculator by hitting graph, and it will go ahead and do it. And you can see, wow, it does hit almost every point. So it's much better fit. So now we can see that, yeah, when you go to the year 2018, it's going to drop. We're not going to get that high value we thought it was going to be when we did it with the regression. So I'm going to type that in. I'm going to go to second quit. I'm going to go to vars, y-vars. I'm going to go to function, and I'm going to call up number 2 because that's where my equation is stored. And in parentheses, I'll go ahead and put in the 28. Okay, and then hit enter, and now I get a much better value. It's a 0.998 is my, or 0.999 if I rounded it. So in my prediction now, in the year, at the year 2028, sales would be of $0.999 million. SUVs. So it's dropping. Okay, probably because SUVs back then had high gas mileage, and so they're starting to look at other cars that are more cost effective and save on gas and that kind of thing. So that's why they're dropping, I guess. But that's the prediction of our data. And so now when we go to our calculator and do the graph, if I want to, I can see both of them by going back to y equals. I'll hit right arrow, I'll hit enter, and I hit graph, and now I can see both. And obviously the linear regression one is not just, it's not going through that many points. In fact, it's got the same amount above below, but the one that best fits the data is what we're looking for. And so the quadratic is the better of the two choices. And so that's what you do in the homework and quizzes. You're trying to figure out which one of these graphs is the better choice. And that is decided by how many points the curve actually touches or crosses through.